Hello, my dear friends. How do we really understand? I don't know how many of you have actually seen the medulla, real medulla oblongata, but it looks like a white nervous tissue. It's very difficult to understand each structure that is present there and to understand in details. So what was actually done was medulla was taken and sliced. Fine slices were made. Each slice was now stained, and individual structures were delineated. Which are nuclei, which are tracks, what are fibers, and so on. Until they were then correlated with the functioning of medulla oblongata, and then it was decided that to understand medulla oblongata at our level, you should understand three sections of medulla: a lowermost section, a middle section, and an open uppermost section. Okay, so why these sections? Why not others? Because at each of these three levels, something very important is happening in medulla oblongata, which needs to be discussed. Okay, so what are the three sections we will be studying? Oh, we're not studying all three today. We are studying only one today. Okay, so the three sections you should study to understand medulla are a section at the decussation of pyramids. We've talked about this. The section at the level of pyramidal fibers, a section at the level of sensory decussation, and finally, a section through the open medulla, also called as mid-olivary nucleus section. So today I'm going to discuss section 1, or section that passes through decussation of pyramidal fibers. Note, when we are doing this, I'll be asking you to do some drawing. I'll be asking you to slowly develop the section on the paper. Believe me, that's the best way to do it. So it will be nice if you sat with a drawing book, some color pencils, or you can sit with your iPad or whatever works. But try and draw along with me, right? So first thing I want you to do is imagine the brainstem, and then imagine that I have cut the brainstem at the lowermost level. Okay. So here's your medulla. Here's the section we have taken, and this is what you have drawn. Remember to correlate this with the spinal cord section that you have known earlier. Color it up nicely. This is your medulla closed section. This is your anterior median fissure, posterior median sulcus, just like the spinal cord. Anterolateral, posterolateral sulci, and therefore anterior region, lateral region, and posterior region, just like the spinal cord. This is the central canal. Are you okay up till here? You can pause the video to do your drawing at leisure. Enjoy the process. Okay. So this is the medulla. It's a little modification of the spinal cord section that we have studied. Now let's add the gray matter to it. Remember, around the central canal in spinal cord also there is a gray matter surrounded by the white matter. So here is your gray matter surrounded by the white matter. Are you okay up till here? So you can compare it to this spinal cord. You can see central gray matter, peripheral white matter, and the central canal in the center. The gray matter is a little bit modified, which we will be discussing. Are you all enjoying this? Are you doing the drawing? Good. Right. So as the spinal cord continues into the spinal cord, initial features are similar. There is a central gray matter, there is a peripheral white matter. We are comfortable with this. This is what we have drawn. Now what happens? Okay. So what we see is in the anterior region, okay, the region becomes a little swollen. It begins to protrude forwards a little more. And you should now draw two sections in it, which are, color them up, and which are our pyramids. Remember, I've done this earlier. Pyramids are bundles of fibers or swellings in medulla formed by bundles of fibers. Which three bundles? Corticospinal, corticobulbar, and corticopontocerebellar or corticopontine fibers. So draw your pyramids, color your pyramids, and ready yourself for a discussion on the pyramids. Pyramids are elongated swellings which are lying between the anteromedian fissure and the anterolateral sulcus. We know this from our earlier lecture. These are the pyramids. The pyramids are formed by three fibers: corticospinal, corticobulbar, corticopontine. Let's do this discussion again today, although we've done this earlier, because it's very, very important. So this is your cerebral cortex. This is midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, and of course this is the spinal cord. See how fibers begin in the cortex, pass through midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata, and collect in the medulla anteriorly to form the swellings called pyramids. These fibers are called corticospinal fibers. Some of these fibers stop in midbrain, pons, or medulla to stimulate the motor cranial nerves. They are called corticobulbar or corticonuclear fibers. Right. Some fibers descend from cortex into the medulla to stimulate the arcuate nuclei. Remember, we've done arcuate nuclei. When they stimulate arcuate nuclei, these give rise to fibers that cross midline and go and relay into the opposite side cerebellum. These fibers are called anterior external arcuate fibers. But these are corticopontine fibers which also contribute to the swelling called as the pyramid. So, three sets of fibers form the pyramids: corticospinal, corticobulbar, corticopontine. It is important to know the names of these fibers, but it is even more important to understand what these fibers are, where they are going, and why. So, why are fibers coming from cortex and going to cerebellum? Because they are corticopontocerebellar, they have to inform cerebellum so that cerebellum is aware of any motor activity planned by the body, so that cerebellum can modulate your motor action to help maintain the body balance. Similarly, why are corticospinal tracts coming to medulla? Because from here they're going to descend downwards and control motor activity of the body, carry out motor activity of the body. So, what are the fibers and what do they do? Why are they in medulla? That is, understanding that will bring about true understanding of medulla for you. So we know corticobulbar are going to stimulate cranial nerve motor nuclei. We know corticopontine are going to inform cerebellum. Let's learn a little bit more about these corticospinal fibers. What happens? So these fibers decussate. They cross over in the midline. Let's get ready for an event in medulla oblongata. Right. So this is what our drawing is all about. Now observe carefully. Can you see fibers from the pyramid crossing the midline to the opposite side? From one pyramid crossing the midline to the opposite side. You can see that they are passing through the gray matter, right? These are decussating fibers of pyramids. This is the great motor decussation. Isn't it a lovely name? Great motor decussation. It's an event. Of course, it's an event. Why is it important? Well, I'll come to that. So, in the lower part of medulla, fibers of corticospinal tract undergo decussation such that 70 to 90% cross to the opposite side, descending down through the gray matter, descending down as the lateral corticospinal tract. If those who have studied the spinal cord will understand that there is this tract there. The rest of the fibers descend down uncrossed and form the anterior corticospinal tract. There are finer nuances to this, but I am not discussing those because they can be done when we do descending tracts later. So this is what has happened in the medulla. Fibers have crossed, those remain uncrossed, form the anterior corticospinal tract. Right. So this is a section through the spinal cord. This is the lateral corticospinal tract. This is the anterior corticospinal tract. Think, how did they come here? They came here because of that event of great motor decussation in medulla. I have a question for you. This lateral corticospinal tract, it is corticospinal. So is it carrying fibers of the same side, cerebral cortex, or is it carrying fibers from the opposite side, cerebral cortex? If you know the answer to this, then you have understood the idea of pyramidal decussation. Okay? Think about it. What is the importance of the great motor decussation? The importance here is that this is the point where motor fibers of cerebral cortex cross to the opposite side. So, this crossover means that one side cerebrum controls the opposite side motor activity and vice versa. Okay, so a lesion, heaven forbid, if it happens in your brain above this, okay, then the lesion, the effects of the lesion will be seen on the contralateral side. But if the lesion is below the decussation, then the effects of that will be seen on the ipsilateral side. Contralateral means opposite, ipsilateral means same side. Think about it. It's very important that you go back to your paper, try and draw it the way I have shown you, and understand how one side of your cortex controls the opposite side of your body. Okay? Right. So, effect of decussation on gray matter. Take a look. As this fiber crossed, a portion of the gray matter broke off. Can you see how bit of the gray matter is now broken off here? This broken off bit of gray matter, you can see your gray matter dividing into two. This broken bit of gray matter is called supraspinal nucleus. What is it called? Supraspinal nucleus. Please add it to your diagram. From the supraspinal nucleus, you will see the origin of two nerves. One that emerges and comes forward through the anterolateral sulcus is the ventral root of C1 nerve. Another rootlet that emerges is one of the rootlets of spinal accessory nerve. Remember, cranial accessory nerve? Similarly, emerging downwards, extending into your spinal cord, are the emergence of rootlets of spinal accessory nerve. Both these nerves take origin from supraspinal nucleus, which is actually the central gray matter broken off because of the crossing medulla fibers, crossing corticospinal fibers. So now we've understood quite a bit. Let's talk now about the posterior gray matter and white matter over it. This is the posterior gray matter. All this is the posterior gray matter. This is the cap of white matter over it. This little portion, I want you to just focus on this little portion here. This posterior gray matter is specifically called spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. And the cap of white matter over it is called spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. Now we come to another very important part. While we saw the motor decussation, we're now going to discuss the sensory aspect. So posterior gray matter, a small portion of it is being discussed here. This small portion, the gray matter, is called spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. The white matter above it is called spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. Remember the swelling called tuber cinereum? This portion is your tuber cinereum. Okay? So, what are spinal tract? What is spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve? Let's discuss that. Right. So, trigeminal nerve form a number of nuclei in the brainstem. So, the function of trigeminal nerve is to carry sensory information from the face and mucous membrane. See, there is a moist region covering your eyes, your oral cavity and so on. Information from here is picked up by your trigeminal nerve and brought into the brainstem, medulla as well as pons and membrane. So pain sensation, pain temperature sensation from your face and mucous membranes is picked up from here and carried to the trigeminal ganglion. And then later on, it is relayed into the spinal tract and nucleus of trigeminal. So, a lot of information for you. Just remember, pain temperature from spinal cord comes via lateral spinothalamic tract, remember? Similarly, pain temperature from your face and your mucous membranes comes via your trigeminal nerve and relays in spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. I will explain this again and again, you will get it. Right. So here's your face, here's your trigeminal ganglion. This whole thing is your brainstem. In the brainstem, trigeminal nerve has got three sensory nuclei. Three sensory nuclei. Okay, what are these three sensory nuclei? Mesencephalic nucleus in midbrain, principal sensory nucleus in pons, and spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve, which is what we are discussing in the medulla oblongata. Okay, so this whole thing is your spinal nucleus in medulla oblongata. Now imagine that this person feels a sensation of pain in her or his face. Okay, pain. What happens? So this pain sensation is carried through the trigeminal ganglion, which is your first order neuron, into your spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve through this descending fiber. Once it is relayed into the spinal nucleus, the neurons of the spinal nucleus will act as second order neurons. Okay? This theory is for you to read, it's not for me to read. Let's move forwards. The neurons here in the spinal nucleus act as second order neurons. Their fibers cross midline. See how they are crossing midline and ascend upwards as the ventral trigeminothalamic tract. So first order neuron from face to spinal nucleus, second order neuron from spinal nucleus forming ventral trigeminothalamic tract, relaying into thalamus of the opposite side. Okay, so now thalamus is aware that there is sensation of pain from the face. From the thalamus, fibers will emerge and relay into the cerebral cortex, and cortex will recognize that there is pain from the region of the face. This is how pain temperature from your face passes through all this to finally get recognized as pain in your cerebral cortex. Which is the nucleus involved? Spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. Which is the tract that carries this? Okay, the tract carrying it is ventral trigeminothalamic tract. And these fibers here, which are descending downwards to spinal nucleus, are the spinal tract of trigeminal nerve. Okay, have you got this? These fibers have a somatotopic organization, which I don't wish to discuss here. However, I will put it as a note in the notes section. Those who are interested should read it. Right. So what we discussed just now was spinal nucleus and tract of trigeminal nerve, carrying pain and temperature sensation from your face. But there are some sensations which are ascending from your spinal cord into your medulla. Okay, what are these? So let's go now to the rest of the posterior gray column. Here you are seeing two projections of posterior gray column, two more lateral projections of the posterior gray column. What are these? This is the nucleus gracilis. Remember gracile tubercle? Covered by fasciculus gracilis, which has come up from the spinal cord. This is nucleus cuneatus, covered by fasciculus cuneatus, which has come from the spinal cord. So this on both sides is basically your dorsal column tract, and these nuclei are the nuclei into which your dorsal column tract finally relays. How it relays, what happens, we will discuss in my next lecture. Right. So this is fasciculus cuneatus, this is fasciculus gracilis. These are carrying the modalities which they have brought up to medulla. This is how fasciculus gracilis comes up, and this is fasciculus cuneatus. That was just a little section of spinal cord to orient you. So the dorsal column tract, I just want to briefly discuss it with you. This is a tract which is present in the posterior funiculus of spinal cord, and these are the modalities it carries: fine touch, discriminative touch, sense of vibration, Stereognosis. I know I have a mouse in my hand and it's not a real mouse. That's stereognosis. And conscious sense of position. All this is being carried out by your most new tract in the human body, which is the dorsal column pathways. Fasciculus gracilis carrying it for the lower half of the body. Fasciculus cuneatus for the upper half of the body and upper limb. Right. So understand this in the form of an image. Fine touch has been felt. I have felt the fine touch. It's picked up by my receptors. By the neuron in the dorsal root ganglion carries it into the dorsal column here, ascending upwards into the medulla, which is where we are now. In the medulla, at one point, it's going to relay in the nucleus gracilis and cuneatus, fibers of which will cross midline, ascending upwards into the thalamus, and finally from thalamus into the cortex, and the sensation will be recognized. This is the dorsal column. We will be discussing much about it in my next lecture. Right. So which other tracks should we see and draw in our medulla section? Remember the idea, some tracks are ascending up from spinal cord, sensory. Some tracks are descending down from the brain, motor. We have to draw them because medulla oblongata is a conduit through which they are passing. They have to pass through this. So let's begin to add them to our diagram to complete our section. This is just a reference image for you to understand which are ascending and which are descending. Use it well. Right. So this is the diagram you've been developing. Here now I want you to add these three tracks. The lateral spinothalamic, the spinotectal, and the anterior spinothalamic. Remember, these were there in the spinal cord. They are just carrying sensation of pain, temperature, touch, pressure from the spinal cord upwards. Okay, so draw these, label them. Now just deep to them, draw your rubrospinal tract. Rubro from red nucleus down to spinal cord. Stimulatory to flexors, inhibitory to extensors. It's an important motor pathway. So let's label this as well. This is the anterior and posterior spinocerebellar tract, which is informing your cerebellum about the unconscious, the position of the body. And here are olivospinal and lateral vestibulospinal tract. You can also add the spino-olivary tract to it. But when you add too many tracts, it becomes sometimes a little difficult for you all to remember it right in the beginning. So this is the section at the lowermost section of medulla, the point where the pyramidal tracts actually decussate or the corticospinal tracts actually decussate. I like doing this because your body has this motor memory, I believe. So all these corticopontocerebellar, crossing motor decussation, all this leaves a memory in your brain and helps you to recall. This is my belief and therefore I tend to do a lot of actions in my lectures. So I want you to practice this section, not only because it helps you to understand medulla, but those of you who are using this for actually giving exams later, a section can be asked to you as a draw and label and then explain. So you have to be able to draw it to be able to talk about it later. So do practice this diagram. A few questions for you to see if you really understood. What is one? It's the spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. What is two? This is the decussating fibers of the corticospinal tract. Below this, it's going to continue as lateral corticospinal tract. What is three? Supraspinal nucleus. Name the nerves it gave rise to. Ventral root of C1 and rootlets of spinal accessory nerve. What is this? These are the fibers which are creating the swelling called pyramid. 5. Fasciculus gracilis. 6. Anterior spinocerebellar tract. 7. Anterior spinothalamic tract. Okay, so this is how you should keep revising to keep your brain sharp and you keep these tracks in place. Last question. This is a section through which part of brainstem? You know, because we are studying medulla oblongata, but given this without the lecture, the background of the lecture, you should be able to recognize this as a section of medulla. At what level is it taken? Yes, because you're seeing decussating motor fibers, you know this section is taken at the level of corticospinal tract decussation or the great motor decussation. This is a summary of this lecture. Go through it, it will help you to revise better. So I'll see you in my next lecture. My next lecture will be about a middle section of medulla. That's where there is a great sensory decussation happening. I hope you enjoy that as well. So, but again, solve the questions I have given you. Come for the next lecture with that one step backwards. I'll keep on telling you again and again, 2 step forwards, 1 step back. That's neuroanatomy. The day you forget to take that 1 step back and revise, you're not going to progress. So remember to take that 1 step backwards. Okay? All right, I'll see you in my next lecture on medulla oblongata section 2, middle section of medulla. Bye.